Madam, you're just coming back from the UN General Assembly, which took place in New York not long ago. We'd like to know from you, what are some of the highlights of this General Assembly of the UN?
The top highlight was really about the validation of and the collective commitment from all the member states to actually endorse the SDGs, the 17 SDGs, Sustainable Development Goals, and all the subsequent indicators, which is already a big achievement, because that's a process which started a while ago, and it was very important to make sure that we are able to mobilize again internationally and collectively for a better world. And it's not only a slogan, it's really a very important objective. The second one, it was really also, if we have to come back 15 years ago, you could see that a lot of progress has been done in terms of real partnership, where really countries and member states are sitting around the same table, having this, a real dialogue between developed and developing countries, between the North and the South, and of course with the very important role to the G77, with the very clear voice of Africa through the African Union plan, for the SDGs and for the post-2015, which is a completely different positioning compared to 15 years ago. So we could see really that the continent and Africa in particular is really strengthening its positioning, coming up with a single voice, coming up with a single position, with a vision from African for African.
Tell us, from your own perspective, do you actually see the MDGs being actually achieved as opposed to the slow pace in which the MDGs were achieved?
I don't see the MDGs achieved.
I'm talking about the SDGs.
SDGs, we have to, it's still to come. It's still to come, of course. The SDGs is, we just got the validation in the General Assembly this September, and now we need to start our homework here in Cameroon under the leadership again of the government to come up with the translation of the global MDGs into Cameroon SDGs, of course.
Okay.
Again, we will keep in mind that this is not replacing the non-achieved or the ongoing MDGs, as long as we did not reach the objective, of course.
Madam Najat Rochdi, it's our pleasure having you on The World This Week. What is a vision of the United Nations now that UN is 70, in the next 25 years or so, maybe when the UN is 100? How do you see the role of the UN in the world?
Well, 70 years ago, United Nations was created to keep peace. And since then, actually, United Nations never stopped. I would say unfortunately, because it means that we have a number of conflicts around the world. Unfortunately, we still had to play this role, sometimes with a very good success, and sometimes not, with not that many success. And we have to be also very honest about that. Whatever we have been able to achieve was because, the member states were willing also to play the game of peace, to work toward peace, and of course to set up all the seeds for peace. Unfortunately, I see the role of United Nations still keeping peace and still important in preserving the peace. Plus, of course, all what is related to human rights. I think there is still a need for United Nations when it comes to promoting human rights and making sure that every single person no one is left behind, and certainly not because of its ethnic, its sex, or its religion, or color of skin, or whatever. So there's still work to be done there, and we could see that everywhere, not only in developing countries. We are still facing a number of issues which are related to racism, which are related to exclusion, which are related to discrimination, and therefore keeping the fight for human rights universally is still very important, and United Nations is still needed there. There is still a lot of work to be done when it comes to equality between men and women. We are not yet there. A lot of progress have been done, really, and I would like to congratulate actually the government of Cameroon, because compared to other countries, when you see the positioning of the women, at least in terms of political participation, in their role when it comes to the economy and in the social, arena, it's really great. There is still a lot to be done. I'm not saying that we are there. There is still a lot to be done, but it's important also to acknowledge the progress. We still have too many humanitarian crises going on. We have a humanitarian crisis in Cameroon, in the east, and Adamawa, where it's a result of car crisis. We have also a very important humanitarian crisis in the far north of the country because of the attacks of Boko Haram and the crisis in Nigeria. But the same is going in many other countries. And unfortunately, this is not a crisis we can address in 6 months or 3 months. So they are there to stay for a number of years. And unfortunately, I am afraid there are other conflicts which are still ongoing. And therefore, yes, United Nations has a very important role with its partners, with the international NGOs and the national NGOs, and the support of the government to play to preserve the asylum rights for refugees, and that's very important. And when we see what is going on, the last weeks, it shows that there is still a role there for the United Nations, but also when it comes to just the human being in us, the solidarity attitude, the generosity attitude is one of the best values and the best part of the human being we are. And I really hope that United Nations will keep playing this role of promoting just the best part of the human being in us.
The world today counts over 120,000 peacekeepers in 4 continents and 16 different major operations. But we know the Security Council of the United Nations takes its time to pass its resolutions to deploy peacekeepers, and we know there's several crises like this in Syria and other parts of the world today. How do you think the future is going to look like at the time when the UN has reached 70 and we're expecting quicker action from the United Nations to intervene in areas of crisis, in areas of conflict, to bring the much needed peace that the UN is advocating for?
Well, you said it. We need to wait for the resolution coming from the Security Council. And the Security Council are member states. Those are not United Nations staff. And we are governed by a number of bodies in United Nations. So the speed of our decisions depends also on the speed of the decision of the member states. So I am afraid the question should be also addressed to the members of the Security Council, and hoping that actually there will be a speed up in a number of resolutions. A lot of delays came also from the fact that the financial resources, despite the promises and the pledges, were not really, available for the United Nations to deploy actually a number of peacekeepers. And as you know, peacekeepers are coming from the member states again. Those are not UN military. They have the status of the peacekeepers, but it's again a gesture and a behavior and attitude of solidarity and generosity from a number of countries who are sending their troops actually to keep the peace and the security in a certain country. So I'm afraid, as United Nations staff, there is very little I can do without the willingness of the member states. And we cannot impose anything on the member states, and we should not anyway. That's not the principle and the functioning of the United Nations. We are hoping that a number of reforms that started already in the United Nations will be supported by the member states and will help us actually do more and do better.
That was the package we put together on this edition of The World This Week. If you enjoyed the program, stay tuned to another edition next week. But before we part company, we invite you to take part in the quiz on the program and win communication credit or other gadgets. The question of the week is, what is the theme of the United Nations Day as used in Cameroon? What is the theme of the United Nations Day as used in Cameroon? Send answers by email to the world this week at CRTV.cm or on our Facebook page on www.facebook.com/theworldthisweek.cm. On behalf of the entire crew, I'm Elvis Teke, thanking you for watching. Stay blessed. Goodbye.
Thank you.